stories in 2 different sections of the local paper, the Gazette Advertiser. One showed a photo of Marcus Molinaro, 20 years old and a fresh-faced and enthusiastic village trustee. He was running to become the mayor of the village of Tivoli. The other announced that Bernie Tieger had just opened Village Books in the same building that had previously housed the village hall and the village library. As we all know, Marcus won and reportedly became the youngest mayor in the nation, and Village Books remained a central business along the Broadway strip of Tivoli for the next 20 years. Not in his wildest dreams back then could Bernie have imagined that in just over 2 decades, Marcus would be running for New York State governor, nor would he have considered the possibility that the main stone bridge coming into Tivoli would be dedicated to him. He would have been stunned. And if he were here today, he would be so honored. In his village history, Tivoli, the making of a community, Bernie wrote on the first page that on a clear day, you can see the purple Catskills rising away from the western shore of the Hudson River. Along with its natural beauty, from his first day in this community, Bernie could also see the intrinsic beauty of this place. He saw indications of what was already, in 1967, a cohesive community. And from that point on, he did his best to build on that. Bernie cared deeply for this village, and throughout most of his adult life, he tended it in any way he knew how. From the time that I met him, back in the days of Tivoli, when Tivoli Acres was just a gleam in Mayor Nice's eye, and when Jean de Costela and Wayne Comgard owned most of the village, Bernie often spoke of what Tivoli could become. He'd say, it could be another Woodstock, it could be Woodstock East. Well, from my point of view, it's much better than a Woodstock East. Thanks to Mayors Marcus Molinaro and Joel Griffith, as well as all the mayors and trustees prior to and in between them, along with the fantastic people that have called Tivoli home, this village has become one of the more special and unique places in the Hudson Valley. Bernie would be so pleased by the wonderful changes which have taken place just in the mere 4.5 years since he died. Amazingly, Tivoli just gets more beautiful every year. As Bernie said in his opening remarks at a talk he gave on the history of the village, it is clear that the spirit of community is alive and well in Tivoli. On that, I congratulate you. I feel sure he would stand behind that sentiment today. The dedication of this bridge to Bernie means so much to me and to Bernie's family, and if he were alive, he would be so, so proud. On behalf of myself and the rest of Bernie's family, I would like to thank our village mayor. I'd like to thank our village mayor, our county executive, and our community for this honor.
Thank you so much, Trish. And we have one final speaker, the most recent town historian who happens to be the greatest deputy mayor in the village of Tivoli, Emily Major.
Okay, so in 1967, when Bernie was offered a job teaching sociology at Bard College, he moved his family to the tiny village of Tivoli. And since I'm here with a microphone in front of me, I have to talk a little about the history of Tivoli. So, with an easy landing site on the river and a creek with 4 mill sites that supported mercantile enterprises as early as 1728, Tivoli had experienced an early prosperity that became a full-on boom with the railroad in 1850. Tivoli's population and relative wealth increased through the 19th and early 20th century until the Depression and the ascendancy of the automobile precipitated the decline in the importance of the railroad, which ended with the closing of the station at Tivoli in 1960 and the loss of scores of jobs. Tivoli in the late 1960s was a different place than what you see now. Here's a description from a 1968 study of the village. Quote, "The first impression a visitor gets is one of a village that is in a state of disrepair and decline. The main intersection of the village, the Four Corners, is very old-looking. The businesses that occupy this intersection are shabby in appearance. Other buildings in this immediate area are also dilapidated. Unquote. Of 241 houses in the village, 19 were vacant and an additional 14 were for sale. The Tivoli Public School, which had remained an outlier when the rest of the Red Hook District schools consolidated in 1935, graduated its final class of 10 students in 1965. The population was in the 600s, down from a peak of 1,350. This is the village, this is the Tivoli that Bernie arrived in, a tight community with a strong identity which had been formed by geography, being set apart off the main road at the northwest corner of the town of Red Hook, in the very northwesternmost part of Dutchess County, and also by the presence and participation of longtime residents, many with family ties dating back to the early 18th century. But it was also clearly a community in decline. A city boy, Bernie had become interested in the idea of community with a capital C, specifically the structure and rituals of rural village life, after reading Granville Hicks's 1942 memoir, Small Town. Some essential elements of Hicks's life seem to have presaged Bernie's, in that it is the recollection of a college professor who moves to a tiny rural community and becomes very involved in the social and political life of that place. Fascinated by, and later enamored of the dynamics of rural village life, and especially the idea of community, Bernie quickly became involved. He caught what he referred to as the village virus, the main symptom of which was enthusiasm. A headline in the Rhinebeck newspaper in 1977 summed it up nicely: Tieger wants to help his village. And he did. Over the next 40 years, he served on the Zoning Commission and as a village trustee. He was the planning board chair and advisor to the Tivoli Planning Committee, which surveyed residents directly about the needs of the village. From 1999 to 2014, Bernie was the Tivoli Village historian. It was his belief in the power of a community's past that led him to conceive of the 3-day event in 1972 celebrating Tivoli's centennial. The June event included a Miss Tivoli beauty pageant, tours of the historic estates, a parade, demonstration by the drum corps, a square dance, various sporting events, a pie eating contest, and other events among a host of other activities. The 100th anniversary of Tivoli's incorporation lit the fuse of community spirit at a time when the village most needed it, and revived a tradition of creativity and civic pride that continues with gusto today. One of the many great things about living in a community like Tivoli, in close quarters with daily opportunities for interaction, is that you get to know your neighbors in a more multifaceted way than one would in a larger town or city. Bernie was an educator, yes, and a bookstore owner, a mentor to many, and an advocate for community, our community. And Granville Hicks said that the individual can make a difference if they choose to, and Bernie certainly did. So for that, we dedicate the 2018 Broadway Bridge to him. And now, please go to the Village Hall and eat lots of things on the 3rd floor.
Yes, there is a reception provided by Trish and the family up on the 3rd floor of Village Hall. So, you know, someone made a joke, maybe it was, I can't remember who, take credit, that we can get this crowd at 10:30 on a Monday. What do people at Tivoli do? Don't we have to be at work right now? But if you don't have to go back to work, please join us for some refreshments. And I'd like to invite Trish and Marcus to please unveil the plaque. And everyone can take a look, and then we'll see you up at Village Hall.